He was the greatest escape artist of all time, and his name was the embodiment of mystery and wonder. I'm Lawrence Fishburne. Even though Harry Houdini has been dead for nearly a century, key questions remain about his life. On tonight's mystery, Houdini's diaries, kept under lock and key in New York City, may answer some of those questions. It is the first time they have been made public.
For the first time, we're getting to see Houdini in his own words, the most unfiltered version of the man.
What do the diaries reveal about the real Harry Houdini, his background, and how he became the world's greatest showman?
Houdini wanted to be bigger than life, and he would do anything towards that end.
What was the secret of his mass appeal?
Houdini was certainly the person who made the idea of an escape artist mean something to the world.
I defy the jails of the world to hold me. That is a better slogan than all you need is love.
How much did he risk to stay famous?
Up until this point, the stakes were, if Houdini fails, it's humiliation. Now the stakes are life and death.
The legacy and life of a legend who cheated death until it found him.
The most famous magician today is Harry Houdini. The first magic name people can name, Harry Houdini.
Kids on the street know his name when they don't know Penn and Teller.
In any famous person's life, there are at least 3 different stories for any one event. Except in Houdini's life, there are 10 stories to any one event.
Harry Houdini kept diaries throughout his life. While some have been released, thousands of pages, some handwritten, some typed, have remained a mystery, hidden from public view. A handful of trusted magicians and Houdini scholars have been allowed to read them. At last, the custodian of the diaries, magic historian Bill Kalush, has agreed to make them available.
The diaries now being made available through this documentary is a really big thing. And this would be the first time that we'll be able to peruse these diaries and learn more things about Houdini's life and career than we could ever have in any other way. The challenges are critical to understanding Houdini. You can't understand Houdini and his fame, why he's enduring in our culture. You can't understand any of those things if you don't understand the challenges.
In every town where he plays, Houdini lets himself be put to the test in some new way.
In one case, it was a giant paper bag, which doesn't sound difficult to get out of, but he had to do it without tearing the bag.
He would escape from inside a giant American football. Lots of safes as well.
I believe there was one escape that he did from a large dead whale.
Escapes are inherently boring, but the moment you put a human element to it, now all of a sudden there's stakes that the audience can relate to, and they're going to pick a side. You know, who's going to win? Who do you want to win? And it was really smart. Not only the things that he was doing were, you know, unique and so would get new press attention, but at the same time, was our town going to be the town that beat Houdini?
There's only one problem.
In all these provincial towns, you might not have enough people to volunteer to do challenges or even to respond to you to do challenges to keep the show up every night.
For years, people have wondered how these challenges came about. A lost diary entry provides the answer. Writing about a show in England, Houdini says in a kind of gibberish, "Friday challenge, box built on stage. Had 3 men of Burroughs Sawmill, same firm as last time. Gave the foreman Coburn, pray pound. The other 2 men received, be quick."
There's something that I didn't understand until reading the diaries, and that's that Houdini would actually pay people to come up on stage and challenge him. He would write it in a secret code in his diary. I can't really explain why he would only put those bits in code. Maybe he just didn't like the idea that he'd paid.
Challenges were rarely delivered to Houdini's door. He most often arranged the challenge and then dramatized it.
Thanks to his formula, Houdini becomes a sensation throughout the United States and Europe. But it is in Russia that the persona of Harry Houdini, the man who could escape from any shackles, really sets fire to the imagination.
When Houdini gets to Russia, he gets the idea to challenge the police to escape from the Siberian transport cell, which is the boxcar that you get thrown in and taken to Siberia. So it has this lore around it as the ultimate, you're done for.
Well, they lock Houdini in, and they're very diligent. They search him in every possible place you can imagine that could hide any sort of implement, and they lock him in, and he escapes. The news of this just went across the country as fast as it could.
It immediately transported him to the status of iconic folk hero legend.
The themes of his act really were relatable no matter where you were in the world. You know, people in Russia and people in the UK and people in America, they all wanted to see somebody get one over on authority. They wanted to see the underdog succeed, and those are universal themes.
He's now arguably the most famous man in Russia. He's the most famous person in Germany, London, and America. He's dotting his way to becoming the most famous performer in the world.
In his diary, Houdini revels in how he's treated by fans and possibly embellishes the details. He writes, "Was cheered over and over again as they sang 'And Will You Know Come Back Again.' In another, he writes, "Mob waited for me and took me shoulder high, carried me home and upstairs, had to make a speech from the window."
It just seems very odd that the audience wouldn't go home. They would wait out in front of the theater for him to come out and then pick him up on their shoulders and carry him to a hotel. It's just too much for me to buy into.
I think when Houdini wrote in his diary, it was a part of an ongoing fantasy life that he had. And part of that fantasy was an extreme exaggeration of what went on. It was how Houdini wanted reality to be. So he wrote it down, because if it was in his diary, maybe it happened. Maybe in his imagination, he was carried shoulder high around the town.
I have to think that he was writing these with the idea that in the future, other people are going to be reading this. And he wanted to make sure that they knew how great he was. For Houdini, it's all about legacy.